Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Uh, how do you pronounce your last name? Is
Oh,
it
Gillette.
Gillette? Okay.
Yeah.
That was one of the 30 versions I had of that. But
Gelate. No, it's Gillette. Gillette.
I'm here with Philip Gillette, director of First Word on Horror and director of The Spine of Night. It was a movie we covered and we love that movie. And
Thank you.
so I was pretty excited to see what this is. And this is quite a strange I'm not even sure what to call it. Series, I guess, would be the most broad version of that. But what got you started on this? Because it's kind of a interesting take on this sort of thing.
Yeah, so I have always loved the horror genre, and writers and just reading great horror in general. I mean, it's sort of where I got my interest in the genre. Really, was from reading like Stephen King and Anne Rice and Clive Barker as a kid. And so had opportunity to meet a lot of really interesting writers over my career. And it started specifically, honestly, with Laird Barron, who is the guy with the eye patch in the series. And I knew that he had had a really interesting life. He grew up in rural Alaska. He ran the Iditarod, and then he's almost died many, many times. And I just thought it would be really fascinating to sit him down and get him to tell me about his life, and then also tell me about the creative process that goes into his writing. So we started with that interview, and that interview went so well that I thought, oh, I know all these other interesting writers. Wouldn't it be great to sit them down and really talk about their life and their creative process? Um, just I mean, a little bit selfishly, right? Because I love to talk to writers and I love to talk to creative people, but then also just I thought we could make something really interesting and instructive for people who love the genre and people who love writing and fans basically.
Yeah. But sometimes when you do stuff like this, sometimes you know exactly what you're getting into, sometimes you don't. Have you run across anyone where it's like, oh, cool, or interview someone and you interview them, it's like, there's just nothing here. We gotta we gotta nix
So
this one.
I have not had that problem so far because I knew that um Laird, Stephen, Mariana, and Elizabeth Hand all had pretty interesting things happen to them in their lives. So if nothing else, I knew that there were things I could poke at to get something interesting out of Paul Tremblay, who's a good friend of mine. When I asked him if he wanted to be interviewed, he said to me, and I don't think I'm telling tales out of school or whatever the turn of phrase is, he said to me, "Oh, I'm going to be the boring one, aren't I?" And I said, "Well, hold on." So, and actually, he is not the boring one. His if you compare the biographies, he didn't grow up in Alaska. He didn't grow up rough in West Texas. He didn't grow up under a dictatorship. He grew up in suburban Massachusetts. But that actually makes him really interesting given the context of the rest of the show. And he's a pretty deep thinker on a various number of topics. So his interview is great. I will say I did run into things I didn't expect, but not in the boring sense, in the opposite sense, where I would ask a question that I thought was innocuous and was going to have, just sort of like a filler answer. And suddenly I'd be hearing a story about Mariana knocking a girl's teeth out, or Laird being convinced that he had a doppelganger somewhere in Seattle, or just, you never know. It was a treasure trove of interesting anecdotes, ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna have all the rest of the interviews listening to this. Is it me? Am I the boring one? Oh, no.
I'm always the boring one. That's the problem.
There you go. There's your out. So I guess you've done so many different things behind the scenes, directing, editing, writing. What's kind of your favorite thing to do as far as filmmaking goes? And then what's something that you really like doing this? Like I didn't think I'd like that as much as I did.
So my favorite part, and this is a little bit of like a floofy hippie answer, is I really like to collaborate. It doesn't matter what part of the process is. The best part of any part of it is the personalities you get to meet and interact with. So whether that's when you're directing, it's every single person you're interacting with, and when you're writing something, it's producers or the person who's going to direct it. So all of that, like more and more, and the more I do it, what I look forward to most, honestly, is the people that I get to work with. If it was the actual particular parts of the process that I enjoy the most, just individually, are honestly probably the rewriting a script that I've already written. So a first draft, no, awful. But rewriting a script is a pleasure. And then on the flip side, um, editing something is also something that I love. And it's almost feels like it's the same intellectual brain function, the rewriting process and the editing process. They're very similar. I sort of think about them in the same way, where you're almost literally moving words around to put them in a different order to get a different effect. Um, and a thing I didn't know that I would enjoy, honestly, is almost the first thing. I'm a pretty introverted, quiet, don't like a lot of people around kind of guy. So I'm a little bit shocked to find myself enjoying like having to collaborate with other people. It's that it caught me off guard, and that's probably why it is ultimately my favorite part of it, because I just didn't expect to like that part of it. So
Yeah. And, what's like so when you're doing interviews or just documentaries in general, there's always a bit of discovery. Like I didn't know I was gonna run into that. What's some stuff that you ran into this it just kind of caught you off guard, or was like, oh, that's I had no idea that this was gonna be part of the thing, but now it is.
yeah, I mean, so I ask each of the authors if they believe in the supernatural, and I asked that question just out of curiosity, and I didn't. So I guess I'm sort of not really answering your question. I was expecting strange answers, but all of their answers were really strange and interesting, and some of them are definitely like, oh yeah, I for sure believe in ghosts, and a lot of them are say they don't, but then they still have these weird sort of experiences that they tell that were really interesting. I guess the other thing, just in terms of the process of making the documentary, we have the interviews, and we're intercutting those interviews with like short stories that those authors have written. So there are a number of moments of discovery in the juxtaposition between the two that I thought were really interesting. It's almost like I was saying about the editing process. You find these sort of associative meanings when you cut from a biographical interview into a story that person has written. And those were all found. I mean, those aren't planned, obviously, because I didn't know what was going to get said in the interviews. So those were all found moments um, that were really exciting in the edit process, where it's like, oh, look at this. This is like, we have to, there's uh, a meaty meaning here that's definitely be part of the thing. So
And I guess before I ask the last question, I'll ask the penultimate one. What's the release kind of schedule like? Where are people going to be able to find this? And I'm guessing this is not going to be like a wide release on IMAX sort of thing.
no. So we are releasing this project via Substack. Substack is it's usually known for journalists who are writing things there, but we're using it to release this documentary series. So it releases the first week in February, and every Friday there'll be a new episode. Each author gets 3 episodes. So there'll be 3 episodes on Stephen Graham Jones, 3 on Paul Tremblay, et cetera, et cetera. And it will run on on our Substack from February all the way into mid-May. So there are about 15 episodes. And our Substack is etchstudio.substack.com. So people can go there. You can sign up on a paid tier, and you get full episodes. You can sign up for free, and you get like really exciting bits of everything that we do. So that's where it'll be, sort of an experimental release strategy.
All right.
Yeah.
And also just send on get a movie recommendation from you. This would be like a kind of lesser seen movie, something that's really good and no one talks about it. And also, if you could add to that, given the nature of First Word on Horror, what's a good horror novel that someone should check out?
Okay, so my film recommendation is the entire body of work of Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Kiyoshi Kurosawa made Cairo, which was remade by Wes Craven as Pulse in America. It sucks, but Kiyoshi Kurosawa is a Japanese filmmaker who I think everybody should be talking about as one of the greatest filmmakers currently living. He's made a lot of horror. He made a movie called Cure about a hypnotist who creates a epidemic of murder in Tokyo. Everything he does, he doesn't always do horror, but horror is sort of in every piece of everything he does. So go find Kiyoshi Kurosawa's movies. They're absolutely fantastic. A novel, a horror. Hold on, I'm going to turn around and pull something off my shelf. A horror novel that everybody should read. Oh, I don't know if I have one in Arm's Reach. I want to hold a cover up, but I don't have one. I'll just do this. This is a short story collection. This is Paul Tremblay's short story collection. You can't see it. It's called The Beast You Are. It came out a couple years ago. It's full of a deeply unsettling, ambiguous stories of horror. And then, if anybody likes Watership Down, the animated movie about rabbits, this book concludes with an epic story about three animals surviving this crazy apocalypse that is Paul's sort of homage to Watership Down. So The Beast You Are by Paul Tremblay is my book recommendation.
Yeah, me and Watership Down.
Yeah.
Philip, thanks for joining me today. And yeah, everyone go check out First Word on Horror. It's real fun, and I look forward to watching the rest of them.
Thank you so much. This was great.